Okay, so we'll get started. So hi guys, welcome to the second Wednesday webinar of the BPSA for the year, and also the first graduate member event for this year. So I know we have a lot of foundation trainees here tonight. We also have some fourth year students as well, so that they can learn a little bit more about the foundation year before they start. So as I said before, for those of you that were here, the sign up for graduate membership, if you haven't already signed up, is on the screen. So feel free to scan that and sign up for your graduate membership. The event tonight will be recorded. If you feel comfortable to put your camera on, please do. It'll be great to meet and see all of you. However, if you are not comfortable with being recorded, that's absolutely fine. Just feel free to keep your camera off. So I'm Liv, I'm the graduate officer for the BPSA. So the graduate officer basically looks after the graduate members for the BPSA. So lots of you here tonight will be graduate members. And essentially the graduate members is similar to the membership that you would have had when you were at university, but it's separate to the RPS. The RPS does have a graduate membership that you can pay for, but the BPSA graduate membership is free. So this year we're sort of planning lots of webinars similar to this one, some revision sessions, and just other events that are useful for you and your foundation training year. And fourth years as well are more than welcome to come to these events if they feel like it would be beneficial and they're really keen and ready to, get started. Oh, sorry, I muted myself there. We also have a graduate subcommittee, which is new for this year. Applications will be coming out in the next few days. So if you are a graduate member or a fourth year student, you can apply to be part of the graduate subcommittee. So keep an eye on our social media for those applications that are coming out in the next few days. So just quickly, I'm going to pass you on to our President, Bella, who's going to talk to you briefly a little bit about our new rebranding, which has happened in the last few days.
Thank you, Liv. So as Liv mentioned, I am Bella and I am the President of the BPSA for this year. Thank you all for attending this webinar and to Liv for organising it. So this week, the association went through something very exciting. We have been refreshed, renewed and rebranded. We hope you all like our new design and follow us on social media and check out our website to see more of it and keep up to date with our work, including future events. I hope you all enjoy the webinar tonight. As a trainee pharmacist myself, I'm really looking forward to it. So I just want to say also a good luck to all of you for the year ahead, and also to the three panelists we have tonight. A thank you for giving up your time to be here, and a big good luck for your results in the morning. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bella. Actually, Bella, would you mind popping up the QR code again, and we'll just keep that up for now, just so that people can sign up. So just a quick rundown of what tonight's going to be. So we've got Wendy, Sean and Seb with us today. So they, correct me if I'm wrong, they are previous pre-registration, it was called pre-registration, obviously we call it foundation trainees now, from last year. So they have finished their training year and have been provisional registrants for the last couple of months. And of course, as Bella said, they are awaiting their results for tomorrow. So a big good luck to all of them. I'm sure it will be fine. So yes, they're going to introduce themselves and then they're just going to talk a little bit about what they did in their pre-reg year, any sort of tips and hints that they think we should know. And then after that, there'll be an opportunity for everybody to ask questions. And then after that, I'm going to play a quick video from pharmacist support just about mental health, because it's really important as foundation trainees, obviously, that we look after ourselves and we know where we can go if we're having any problems. And then we'll wrap it up. So I'm going to go to Wendy first, and then Sean, and then Seb, just to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Wendy, as said, and I'm currently BNL conference organizer for the BPSA. I studied at Aston and I completed, it's been a year and a half now. Oh, time flies. And I did a split placement. So I did 6 months, not 6 months, I did alternating GP and community split. And that was in Ealing in London. And I'm currently a GP-based provisionally registered pharmacist.
So I'm Sean, I'm currently a provisional registered pharmacist as well, getting results tomorrow, so that might change soon. I did my pre-reg with Well Pharmacy, and I'm still working for them now. So I'm community-based. I did all community, didn't do any hospital at all. And I was the president of BPSA the year before Bella, so I am now immediate past president.
Hi guys, I'm Sebastian. As Sean said, we're provisionally registered. It's the last day we're gonna be able to say that. I was a hospital pre-reg in a hospital in the southeast of England, in Basildon, and I spent the whole year in that whilst I was the IPSF officer on the BPSA exec.
Okay, thank you for those introductions. So I'll go back to Wendy again now, if you just want to talk to us a little bit about your pre-reg year, the things you did, and anything you think we should know.
Yeah, sure. So as I said earlier on, my placement was a split between community and GP, and it was an alternating placement. So 1 week in community, 1 week in GP. It was an Ealing. Initially, before Oriel and everything, I wanted to go to hospital so badly. So my top picks were hospital, but then I ended up getting a split, and I'm very thankful for that, to be honest. What does my day look like in the GP? So initially,
oh yeah, sorry, you muted yourself there. We had what does your day look like, and then it cut off. So go.
Perfect. So yeah, so what does my day look like in a GP before we start as a pre-reg? So it was before we started, because of the lack of clinical knowledge, we were basically doing repeat processing of scripts. So just processing all the repeats that came through. My GP is technically not a GP, but then I would say it's a GP as well, because we do provide pharmaceutical services to about 5 different surgeries and then 20 care homes. It's now at the moment about 40 care homes. So it's a massive group, it's a massive team, a massive GP surgery. So we have a house, because it's just pharmacists in there, that is full of 20 pharmacists, 20 technicians, everyone is in there, and it's just pharmacy staff. So not your typical GP style, but then it was still a GP placement, because we had 2 GPs that we worked at. We did everything from medrecs. So when people go into hospital, when they come back, the discharge letters will look through what changed, give them a call, liaise with both the pharmacy and the patient, and then sort out the medication. We did a lot of nursing home queries. So the nurses might have a bit of limited knowledge on medicines. They'll literally give us a call saying, this patient is constipated for 3 days. What do you want me to give? The patient is already on Movicol. How do you want me to step up? So that kind of scenarios that was what we dealt with in the nursing homes. In the surgery, we did a lot of MDTs. So the doctors really always came to us for any medicine queries. Like one of the queries could be, I've got this patient, they've got colitis, I'm not too sure what meds to give them. Could you really look at the renal handbook and then suggest a suitable medicine for this diagnosis? So they'll actually give you the diagnosis, and then they'll ask for recommendations, medicine recommendations for that diagnosis. In that sense, that was later on in the year. We did our placement during a COVID year. So with my GP, we didn't have any face-to-face contacts. I think towards the last month, we did have a few face-to-face contacts doing health checks, NHS health checks, where the patient came in and we did everything by ourselves. You have your own consultation room, one-on-one with the patient, and then go through all the things that you needed to go through. So that was what my day looked like in the GP. In community, I loved it. I loved the 1 week on, 1 week off, because I got to see patients in community. And I thought I didn't like that part of community, but then that was what I loved the most. So that was a bit about community as well. What next should I talk about? Let's move on to how I prepared for my exam. So I worked I worked very far from where I lived, and it was about an hour and 40 minutes journey for me. So I didn't really have a work-life balance. It was go to work in the morning, wake up at 7:30, come back around 8 o'clock, 8:30, eat and sleep from Monday to Fridays. So I really didn't revise during a huge chunk of my year. But luckily for me, we started working from home in March. So that gave me the access of I didn't have to travel. So I used that time really well. And we did have allocated times for revision within the day, within the week for GP. So on Wednesdays, we had the mornings up to revise. So that is when I did a bit of revision. So every Wednesday in my GP week, I had to, I revised a bit. I started revising in May. So from May, up until May, I was still going to the pharmacy, but then I was working from home from the GP. And I literally told the pharmacy that I'm going to take, I didn't take any annual leave during the year. So in May, I literally told the pharmacy, I'm not coming in. I mean, they were very nice to me. It might not happen for you. I just told them I'm not going to come in for the rest of the year because I'm taking my annual leave for the rest of the year. And so that is when I picked up my revision in May. A few things that helped me. I thought I was using the BNF well, but I didn't realize I was missing out a few important stuff because you don't know what's important in the BNF. So one of the resources that I personally used was PharmEducate, and I found that to be helpful. Also, I realized that speaking to friends was a big help. As I said earlier on, I work in a massive team, and then I had 10 pre-regs with me working at the same time. So during lunchtime, we'll literally be asking questions, bouncing off each other. So that is how I revised, sort of picked up things as well during the week. One way of actually being a favorite in your workplace is actually being punctual. I feel like these are little things, but they look out for these things. So just be punctual, the little things, smile always because they're looking at these things. If they want to take you on, these are the things, whether you can fit in well with the team, these are the little things that they pick up on, and always putting yourself forward. As I said earlier on, my GP place, I'm staying on at the same GP place. We had an interview and they had to choose 2 people to stay on. That is where I'm still working. And one of the feedback was you always put yourself forward. You always did things that others didn't want to do. So try and do things. If you're working in a GP, try and tackle the things that are meant for pharmacists, not for pre-regis, and then ask the pharmacist if they could check that for you. That is one way to stand out. Did I apply for jobs? Yes, I did. I didn't know whether my GP was going to open up places to choose a few people. So I actually first asked the manager whether they were going to pick people, and he wasn't too sure about that. He said they were going to pick 2 people and I couldn't put all my eggs in one basket. So I started applying in the mid-revision time. I did a few places that were closer to where I live. Just send your CV out to as many people as you can. You can send 40 CVs, you'd probably more likely get 35 rejections, but that's fine. It's okay. The 5 that reply to you might get a job there. So yeah. And I think that is all that I have for now. If you guys have any questions, I'm free to answer them after. So yeah.
Okay, I don't know how I'm going to follow that one, but mine wasn't quite as eventful as Wendy's. So I did community pharmacy. It's what I wanted to do. I didn't do Oriel. I went straight for community pharmacy. I worked for Well before as a technician. So they gave me a pre-reg place without going through Oriel, which meant I got to enjoy my summer between 3rd and 4th year. Didn't have to stress about it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of fear about community pharmacy and the difference the different pre-regs will have depending where you go. But my day is very typical community pharmacy. You know, I was part of a very small team. You were working very closely with 6 or 7 people. So I did my first 6 months in one of the busiest branches in the company. And then I did my last 6 months in one of the quietest. I deliberately did that because I wanted a little bit more study time in the last 6 months. So I picked a quieter branch for them 6 months, but not everyone gets that luxury. The most important thing is with a big corporate is that you get your study time every week without fail. They make sure they've got HR departments, you've got support systems in place. So just make sure you get your study time. I got mine every week and used it wisely. It's not a chance to finish half day and go and sit in the sun as much as we might want to do that. I was really fortunate that my supervisor at the time was really supportive of me. So anyone that came into the pharmacy and asked to see the pharmacist, was directed to me first of all. So I would triage every single person that walked in that wanted to see him. And then I would then go and talk to him about my diagnosis, what my recommendations were. And then I would then go back to the patient. Obviously, I'd explain that I was a trainee. And then he would come over and talk to them as well. And then as the year went on, I got more and more responsibility with actually the management of the branch. So it is very different where you are going to have to be a dispenser and you're going to have to serve on the counter and you're going to have to help the pharmacist run the branch as well. But that's all learning curves, and it might not come up in the exam. It might not be beneficial for the exam. but it'll be beneficial for your career, and it will help you sort of understand all the processes and the jobs that are required. The corporate side of things, they have really good study days for us. If you're with an independent, they'll probably pay for you to go to a smaller study group or a corporate study group with someone like Buttercups or ProPharmace. Well, do their own in-house. I think Boots and Lloyds do as well. The key thing for them is you need to plan and prepare for them in advance. So there's lots of topics come up on the study day, and they're all on Zoom at the moment, or a lot of them were because of COVID. It's not like a university lecture. You don't want to be like, go and turn your camera off and just sitting behind there and not actually absorb any of it. You're wasting your own time. There's only you that's responsible for this year. So if you've got a study day and there's pre-work to do, have a look through it in advance, try and work through it. It's really important. All your bosses and that will be telling you the same thing. And a lot of you, like, I shrugged it off and didn't get the most out of it, but it's so beneficial to actually get as much information and try and sort of assess your knowledge as you're going through the year. Like there's a big peak at the end where you will study really hard and you will cram revise, and everyone will do that. But as you assess your knowledge throughout the year, you'll get to see the areas that you're really strong in as well. And that means you can then not focus as hard on them at the end. It's really important to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are, so you can focus at the end. Calculations are tough. Some people find them really easy, some people find them really tough. The best thing to do is practice. There's like 9 different structures of calculations that can come up. Find a method for it, memorize that method, and then practice it. And that's the key thing with calculations. It's practice and the memory and the process of going through them. They're all the same. A lot of the examples you'll get are harder than what will actually come up on the exam, is what I found. I found the actual ones that were available in past papers and stuff like that, or resources that you pay for, are actually harder than what actually come up on the exam. I find calculations reasonably okay, so maybe other people have different opinions to me. But the big recommendation I'd say is contact your students that you went to university with. They will be doing placements in hospitals, some will be in GP practices, some will be doing industry placements, some will be doing different community pharmacy sector companies, and share your resources. If you've got a study pack from Well and someone's got a study pack from the hospital, talk to each other about them. Arrange your own study sessions in the evenings or weekends if you can as well, because the hospital pharmacists will have far more clinical experience and exposure than the community pharmacy will, but the community pharmacy will have far more exposure to the over-the-counter stuff, the MEP work, your legal side of things, your age restrictions on products, and they will all come up in the exam. Your paracetamol, ibuprofen doses for kids will come up in the exam. You have to memorize them, with a guaranteed it'll be in every exam. So memorize them, and talk to your other peers who are doing different sectors. Have little support networks, check in on each other, and see how you're getting on. But the big thing I would say is, don't worry about statistics about community pharmacy, 80% fail, hospital 100% pass, men, gender, age, whatever. There's all different statistics out there. They're just stats. You as an individual have the power to revise and put in as much effort as you want to do for that exam. And the more you put in, then the easier you're going to find that exam, and the better chance you've got of not being another statistic at the end of it. So I know they're scary. I know people talk about like community pharmacy and the fact that you'll just be dispensing a lot of the time, but you get out of it whatever you put into it. So put the hard work into it. If you're in community pharmacy, you have to work a bit harder. Work a bit harder. At the end of it, it's your exam, it's your results, and it's your career at stake. So put whatever it takes in to get a pass at that exam. I wish someone had given me the advice at the start of my pre-reg, because I was just panicking all the time, thinking, I don't know this, I'm not getting the clinical knowledge. And when you're dispensing drugs, if you are just a dispenser, if that's what your community pharmacy placement is, which unfortunately sometimes happens, when you're dispensing, dispense slowly. Don't try and be the fastest dispenser, because the slower you are, the less than what they expect you to do it, and you get other jobs to do. But also, when you're taking your time in dispensing, you can look at the actual drug, you can look at what it might be used for, look at a prescription, look at the 5-6 items that are on there, and try and work out what this patient's got. Don't necessarily think about what each drug does and the dose, but start with just look at it and think, what's this patient got? If they've got insulins and needles and stuff like that, straight away, it's diabetes. try and work out what class it is, try and think about what else they could have had that they might have tried before. And then you're looking at like the first class and second class drugs as well. So it's the same thing. You look at what have they got, what might have they tried before, especially with the antipsychotics. That comes up in a lot of the exam questions is what would be first line, what would be second line. I did my dissertation on clozapine. Thank God I did, because it came up in all the papers. So understand your antipsychotics and the monitoring for them. There are lots that you need to memorize that you won't need to actually know in your career because you'll have resources. Unfortunately, the exam is a memory test. You need to memorize this information. So do your best to memorize it, test knowledge as you go, and then increase knowledge at the end, and you'll all be absolutely fine.
So, God, in terms of advice, I'm definitely not like Sean and Wendy. I was very much in the mind space that when I'm not going to be someone that's gonna, I'm not saying that they did this too, but I know a lot of people that sit down with the BNF every night and like make notes. I'm very much someone that likes to learn on the job. And for me, that was like the perfect balance because it didn't massively stress me out when I got to the end of the year and it was time to actually sort of bring it all together for the revision. So my hospital placement was a little bit different to a lot of other people's. I had a lot of ward time. So in the mornings, I'd go on the wards to do all the med recs. We didn't do drug histories because it was all tech-led. So we would do all the ordering and the clinical screening in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we'd go on the bleep. And then we'd have like 6 wards that we'd go around, and when they needed something ordered or something checked before they could like give it, that's what we would do. And that gave me like loads and loads of clinical exposure. So I think clinically I was fine. I think Sean's definitely right. When it comes to calc, you definitely need to sort of brush up your skills throughout the year. I remember at the start of the year, they gave us a test on the first day, and I got like, it was like a half GPHC paper, and I got like 5 out of 20, which was like super worrying. But it got better throughout the year, and eventually towards the end of the year, I was getting like 16 out of 20. And even then, these are like UEA papers, and they were a million times harder than the actual exam. But actually practicing is what you need to be doing for calcs. At some point, you need to just sit down and just learn it. Clinically, if you're working in a hospital, you could probably get away with just by osmosis getting all the knowledge. But again, it depends on who you are as a person. But you don't worry about it too much, because towards the end of the year, when you actually sit down to revise and you're using all these resources, you're just going to pick it up as you go. That was me, short and sweet. Thank you.
No, that was really good, guys. Thank you. I definitely learned a lot, and you had some really good tips there. So I guess we can open up to questions now. So I've had quite a few come through the form. Also, if anybody wants to pop any in the chat, you're more than welcome to, or if any of you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, that's also fine. So I'm just going to go through the ones first that I've got through on the form. So starting from the beginning, I know Wendy mentioned Pharm Educate. Somebody just said, would you recommend doing extra courses? And they said, i.e. pre-reg shortcuts as one of the courses.
I guess I'll go first, but I'm sure other people will add to it. I think resources, like anything, it's individual. So some resources that you pay for will work for some people, some will work for others. There is no, this is the best resource for you. It's a trial and error. A lot of them you get free trials on, so have a look at their examples, have a look at the sort of materials they're providing and see if that works for your style. For me, I used RPS on Track. It was multiple choice questions. I did about 10 or 15 every single week throughout the whole year. I paid for the year membership. I just did it throughout the year. And it's a good way of just sort of picking up little things and learning what you don't know. It's not necessarily about what you do know, it's more what you don't know, so then you can focus your learning. So that's why I use that. There's loads of Instagram people. If you just type in pre-reg or Foundation Pharmacists on Instagram, there's loads of them, and you'll put on like multiple choice questions and stuff like that. Again, there's some that are really good and there's some that aren't so good, but it's just a good way to sit and just test your knowledge as you go. I didn't pay for any of the mock papers or the study days, mainly because I just couldn't afford it. And it's a shame that people have to pay for these sort of things because it does exclude certain people from it. If you've got the money and you've got the time, then it's worth having a go at a couple of them, because you're going to pick up something from everything that you do, everything you invest in, you're going to pick up something. And it's just up to you how much you feel you need to put into it, how much you need to pay for, and how much you can get online for free. Like I say, share resources as well. That'll help keep everyone's costs down. But yeah, there are loads of resources out there. Just find the ones that work for you.
Thank you, Sean. Do either Wendy or Seb have? Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to what Sean said. Yeah, it's really what works for you. I can't recommend anything because I didn't use most things. The only thing that I used that I personally found helpful was PharmEducate, because I realized I summarized the BNF into short chapters. It summarized the chapters into short PowerPoint or like bullet points for me to memorize, and that was what helped me the most. But it's entirely up to you. You can feel free not to pay for anything and you're still going to pass. Some people don't pay for anything. Some people just learn from the BNF straight away, and that helps them as well. So really, you don't have to put pressure on yourself to buy a package. You can use the BNF and that would work as well. So yeah.
I'm just going to pop in there because somebody's literally just put a question in the chat, just asking how you accessed PharmEducate. Was it through a website or? Yeah, if you can answer that, Wendy, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I just typed in Google. So I think a friend in the upper year recommended it to me, and then I used it and it worked for me. Some of my friends didn't use it and it still helped. They still passed. I mean, they still did, hopefully going to pass tomorrow. So yeah, it was recommended to me and then I used it.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna move on to another question. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, Wendy, but I'll ask it anyway. So somebody asked, how did you actually revise the BNF, and how did you know what was important or what parts could be missed?
Okay, I'm going first for all the questions then because no one's going to jump in. Again, for me, I use the BNF app, and I read the summaries on the BNF app rather than the paper thing. Despite being old, I don't like books, I like technology. So I just sat and read on my breaks and stuff, the summaries. They're really useful. I started reading them too late. I wish I started reading them earlier. They take an hour and you can get a really good chunk of it out there. There are podcasts as well, so that break down the chapters of the BNF, so that helps. It depends on your learning style and ability again. You know, some people will read it and take it in. Some people like to listen to podcasts and will take it in. Read the summaries first and just have a really good understanding of the different conditions, and then start to break down the drugs and the dosage and stuff after that. And just try and do one chapter a month and you'll get through them. Some of them are a lot smaller than others. You know, your big ones are your high weighted ones. So look at the GPHC standards, look at what they class as high weighted chapters, and make sure you're focusing on them ones a lot, but don't miss out the low weighted ones, because the low weighted ones are actually easier to learn. So try and do a high weighted one, a medium weighted one, and a low weighted one every single month, and you'll get through them. And it's just a memory test. You just got to try and memorize everything you can. And as you're doing like these multiple choice questions as you go, you start to realize what you don't know and then learn that. And just like anything, it's just a memory thing. There's just a lot to memorize. It just takes time and effort. And if you put time and effort in, you will come out with the knowledge that you need for it.
In the BNF, they'll have these blue boxes with important information, and that tends to be what they ask questions on usually. So it's weird, but I think they sort of expect you to learn every single blue box. But again, the PharmEducate slides tend to summarize exactly what you need. But the blue boxes in the BNF are what you need to be studying.
Yeah, also just to add to that, I would say start past papers early. I mean, I left it too late, which was not great, try and start papers as soon as possible, because the more you do past papers, the more you know what kind of questions that they tend to ask and what kind of questions they like, and it would help you try and narrow down your revision. Don't get scared if you're getting all the questions wrong. It's expected because you just came straight from uni. You're not expected to know everything. So I would say do one past paper a month and then see the type of questions that come up, what they pick for, what they look at, and then yeah, just go from there.
Brilliant, thank you. So somebody asked, what's the best way to speak up and ensure that you get your competencies done?
So I don't know how it works for foundation year, but for me, we had to submit evidences and for different competencies. And I had a great tutor at first who was a really good mentor and really checked up on me every couple of weeks to make sure I was actually doing my evidences. But then I had a change in tutor like halfway through the year, and unfortunately, I would submit evidences, but she'd never look at them. And like the problem was that when it came to actually knowing, I would send these evidences, and instead of having them marked off and I go, yeah, they're done, I know that they're done, I didn't know towards the end of the year, when I had all this mountain of competencies, evidences to do, what actually needed to be done. So the best thing to do is to make I don't know if you guys use VQ Manager, but make your own spreadsheet of evidences and like how many you need to get, and then mark them off as you do it, so you don't have to rely on your tutor marking them off, so that you can tell that they're actually marked, if that makes sense. And communicate as best you can with your tutor, and it's all about just having that professional relationship with your tutor, just to make sure that she understands that she needs to do, like, they need to do their job. And if you're having problems, you can always go to your line manager or someone else in the company to just make sure that they're supporting you the best they can be.
Yeah, I think, and obviously community pharmacy is slightly different because they're like, you're the second senior person in the shop pharmacy. So there is only you and a manager there all day, every day, plus staff. Sort of, you don't really have anyone as easily accessible to go to. But it is all about communication. You know, it's about sitting at the start of the year and saying, like, what is their expectations? What is it that they want you to provide, as well as what you need to do? So I knew exactly what my tutor wanted from me to sign off each competency. I made a list, like Seb said, of all of them with tick boxes, and as I submitted them, I ticked them as I went. I know it's changed slightly this year, so obviously you need to do a system that works for you. It'll be different to what worked for us because it's very different now. But I had conversations with my tutor. If I was struggling with certain things, then I would go and say to them, like, I'm struggling to, like, it might be finding time to write in competences, you know, it might be that I've got loads of things that I could write down, but I just don't have the time to do it. It might be that I'm not getting the exposure to actually gain some of the competencies. So it's about identifying them and just having a chat with them. And if you say to them, you know, I'm struggling to get this done, or I could do with some support, and this is what I'd like to do, go with them with a solution. A lot of them will try and help you do that. You don't all have to be done in the first couple of weeks or the first couple of months. You know, it's meant to be a development year, and you will develop as the year goes on. So, you know, you can't do everything in the first 3 months. You can't do everything in the first 6 months. You know, it's a whole year, and you will just continue to build on it, and it will just naturally happen that you're signing competencies off. And then at the end, you'll have some gaps, and you'll then try and identify them. Some tutors will be a lot more supportive and understanding of what's required, depending on when they qualified, how engaged they are. Some of them will just want you as a dispenser and a spare pair of hands, and it's up to you to have them difficult conversations, you know. And if things are really bad, and I've heard some horror stories with pre-regs, unfortunately, it does happen. You know, there's 3,000 pre-regs every year. There's always going to be a couple that don't go very well. You've got support systems out there as well. You can go to the GPHC, you can get advice from the RPS, the PDA, or any other union or support system that's out there. Even your university will provide support for you. You can contact your tutors there and explain the situation. So talk to somebody about what's happening, and then they can sort of direct you to the right place. Pharmacist support's a great support for mental health as well. So don't suffer alone. The quicker you can resolve the issue, the easier it is to fix. And there's no harm in saying that something's not working and get the support to fix it.
Brilliant, thank you, Sean. So there's been a question in the chat and also quite a few questions in the form just about managing time. Do you have any tips for sort of managing your time, work-life balance?
Don't be BPSA exec. You have no time to do your foundation year. It's about sacrifice. I've got a 7-year-old son, and I did pre-reg and I was a BPSA president, and I managed to find time to do it. It's just about sacrifice. You might not be able to go out to the pub every Friday night with your mates. You might not be able to binge Money Heist on Netflix when it comes out in December, but the sacrifice is you can do all that afterwards. You know, you've got to get the work-life balance right. You've got to find something you enjoy. So I enjoy BPSA. I enjoy having time with my son, and that's a break for me from revision. But it's about finding that balance. So don't revise all the time, every night, every weekend. It's not healthy. It's not going to do you any good, and you're not going to take it all in. Get the balance of what your working hours are, how many hours a week you want to revise. I would recommend 5 to 10 a week max, especially if you're starting early on. An hour an evening, every evening for the whole year is more than enough time to learn everything you need to learn. If you leave it till last minute, you're going to have to do more per week. You know, if you don't do anything for the next 6 months, then you do twice as much the 6 months after. But take some downtime, and it is manageable to get everything you need in the year.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I'll just say use every time that you get wisely. So as I said, I don't revise at all, as in when I come back from work within the week, but the times that I had in the community pharmacy, in the GP, my Wednesday mornings were my protected time. I was not going to allow any pharmacist to say, when did you do this to me? Because that was my protected time, and I used that very well. So that was the time that I blocked out within the week to revise. So initially at the beginning, I just did every, say, 4 hours every Wednesday morning, and that was my time. And then, on Saturdays and Sundays, I barely revised. I would do an hour or two trying to make notes from the BNF on weekends, but that was not frequent until after January. So
Brilliant, thank you guys. So I'm just going to combine, there's been a few questions about applying for jobs. Obviously, I'm not sure, you know, whether all of you did actually apply for jobs or not, but if you can answer them, just when should we start applying for jobs, and just generally how to prepare for job interviews.
So, go on, Wendy. So,
you go first.
So, if you have band 6s in your hospital, or band 6 friends, pharmacist friends from the years above you, always just ask them like what kind of questions came up in interviews if you're applying for hospital. They usually just have a bank of questions, and they ask the same questions for band 6 interviews. So that's to prepare for the interview, and you usually get like a drug chart to screen. And again, that's when it comes to applying for jobs, this will be your bread and butter, and you won't find it too difficult at all. So rely on your contacts just to ask about interview prep and like what sort of questions come up, so you can just prepare the best answers. Thanks.
I started applying for jobs. We start exams in July, so mid-July, but I would say be rest assured you're going to get a lot of rejections because most places are not looking to fill their post with provisional or pre-regis, because they've got pharmacists also applying to some places, especially with the GP and community. They're not going to pick a pre-reg over a pharmacist. I mean, in some cases, they're likely if your application is solid, but that should not put you off. I know someone who applied for 40 plus places. She had 35 rejections and 5 interviews, and with the 5 interviews she had 2 offers. So still apply. You just make sure that you're prepared for the rejections. I applied for 2 places, and then my current place of 3. That was an internal job offer that came up. How do you prepare? I was fortunate enough to actually sit in a room where that my tutors were having an interview. That was earlier on in the year, and I paid particular attention to the questions that they were asking. And so when it came to the interview, I sort of knew what they wanted from me. And I think it's not generic, but the things that you need to know for the place that you were in. So I'm in primary care. They just asked the importance of pharmacists in primary care. Just know the role you're applying for, and just showcase yourself, really.
Yeah, I think passion for me in interviews is the most important thing. You know, if you go in there and you're passionate about the role, that will definitely help you. You'll have seen at the moment, or you might not have seen, you know, jobs for pharmacists. There are plenty of them out there at the moment. You know, the primary care networks are absorbing a lot of hospital and community pharmacists, and therefore they're struggling to recruit. Hospital pharmacy is still hard to get into. It's a lot easier if you've got hospital experience. But even with just community experience, it's so much easier now to jump from community to hospital than it's ever been before. When I was a hospital technician, it was unheard of for community pharmacists to come work in the hospital. And now it just happens all the time. So it's just about finding a job and finding what suits you. For me, the money suits me in community pharmacy. You know, it's almost double the salary than what you get in hospital. It's a really, really good starting wage. And that suits me. And community pharmacy will start recruiting about May for the pre-regis or foundation year pharmacists to start. So start applying for roles. Just put in there that you're a foundation pharmacist. You probably won't have a provisional register because hopefully COVID will be sorted, so your exam will be at the right time and you'll qualify at the same time, so you won't have the same challenges we had of 6 weeks on a provisional register, which makes employment a little bit more difficult. But yeah, about April, May time, start looking out. Speak to people that are in the hospitals, find out when they're recruiting for band 6s, because that tends to be what they're looking for the foundation pharmacist to apply for in about April, May time, and apply for plenty. If you want to come into community pharmacy, give me a shout, add me on LinkedIn. I get £1,000 for everyone that I recommend. So come to me first and I'll get you an interview with Well. And I get £1,000 as well if you do get a job there. So, but yeah, if you want any career advice or tips and stuff like that, then, you know, let me know. I can help out with community pharmacy stuff.
Brilliant, thank you guys. So somebody just put a question in the chat about what are the hours like in hospital. I'm assuming this is probably from somebody that's currently going through the ORIAL process, so they'll be sort of deciding where they want to go at the moment. So I'll just chip in quickly. So I'm doing my foundation training in hospital at the moment. I think it differs between every hospital a little bit. I do 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Every 5 to 6 weeks, I'll do 1 weekend day, and we have to do 1 late shift, which is until 7 p.m. Every month. But I'll let Seb tell you what he did as well.
Sorry, Liv, I was distracted. What was the question again?
That's okay. What did you do when you were working in the hospital?
Yeah, what jobs? Well, again, very different experience to a lot of other hospital pre-regis. So we would go to the wards in the morning. We'd have 2 wards in the morning with a pharmacist, and we would sort out all the order-ins, prioritize the TTA prescriptions, and just make sure everything was screened and wait for the technicians to complete their drug histories. And once the drug histories are done, we did something called a MedRec 2. So that they did a MedRec 1. Oh, what are the working hours? Sorry, my working hours are 9 to 5:15. That's an easier answer. I had a 45-minute break.
Did you ever have to do any weekends or late shifts or anything like that?
Yeah, so we had to work 1 in every 6 weekends, and we had to work 1 bank holiday. We got all the bank holidays off, but we had 5 bank holidays between all the pre-regs, and we had to work 1 of them between the 5 of us. So that was how.
Brilliant, thank you, Seb. So somebody's asked a question in the chat about how do you identify an event that could be written up as an evidence, and how do you, so I think we'll skip the bit about mapping the evidences just because it's slightly different for our year than it was for your year. So just to avoid any confusion, I would probably recommend speaking to a designated supervisor about that specifically. But just in terms of how do you sort of choose what you are going to do as an evidence?
I think pretty much everything has the potential to be written up as an evidence. It's about your ability to convert the evidence into the standards, or whatever the structure is this year. It is different, so I don't want to get too bogged down with it, but read what you're expected to demonstrate and then think about where you've demonstrated that. So at the end of each week, do a bit of a reflection, look at your standards or the list that you need to show competence in, and think to yourself, where have I shown competence in this area? Where have I done this? Have I done it this week? And then you can go back and then write it up. But pretty much everything, handing out a prescription will be an evidence. Obviously, some will have a lot more depth in them. So the more involved you are with a particular event, if you've cancelled a patient, then that covers a lot of things like confidentiality and consent and all that. So, you know, but every little thing you do will have space to be an evidence. It's just about where your gaps are and what you need to try and demonstrate your competence in.
A lot of people don't realize this at the start of the year, but a lot of the evidences are linked. So I don't know if they're exactly the same now, but for example, the CPD competency was all linked. So you had to identify a problem, what was the issue, write in the CPD, how have you applied that to your practice, applying learning to practice. So at the start of the year, you might think, oh, I applied my learning to practice because I did something at uni and now I'm applying that to practice, but you've missed out on all the other competencies. So it's better to just sort of plan things before you do them. Look at the list of competencies you have, and then when you're on the ward or in the pharmacy, you know exactly what tasks will link, and then you can sort of like there was one about identifying problems, I think, and then how did you resolve the issue, blah 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 blah. So when you have identified the problem on the ward, you can then think, oh, now I can get 4 other evidences just from this one thing if you just follow it through. So that's the best way to approach those things.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm just going to come in with a question of my own. So obviously you were during a COVID year, and obviously COVID is still around, and possibly cases are getting worse at the moment, especially in hospitals. So do you have any tips on how to deal with COVID and managing any anxiety around COVID and just sort of general work life?
My first tip would be for managing anxiety, take a break if you need to. Speak to your supervisors. They're there to support you throughout the year. Don't feel like you have to be present always. You have to always show up with your A game on. If you're not feeling okay, if you're anxious about actually speaking to patients, speak to them. That is what they're there for you. That is what they're there for. If they're not helpful, you could ask someone else, like if your line manager or your tutor is not helpful, you could ask like an extra manager or something. So always speak out. I think that is what people fail to do. They don't know what you're going through. So the best thing is to speak out, and yeah, hopefully they'll be able to help you. If not, you've got the PDA, you've got pharmacist support, everyone around you. You've got the BPSA to help you. So speak out.
Yeah, I think like community pharmacy as well, it's a lot more like sort of patient focused at the moment. You know, people still walk in, people still expect flu vaccinations, they still expect blood pressure monitoring. You have to have private chats within the consultation room. You know, you just have to make sure you're wearing full PPE, you know, protect yourself and your team. You know, things are getting a little bit easier, like the PPE in the back of the pharmacy, but as soon as you're in that consultation room with the patient, if you're doing that, make sure you're at least a minimum wearing a mask, regardless of whether the patient is or not, because you want to protect yourself. You know, it is a hard environment in community pharmacy because you are face to face with people that are coming in with colds, coughs, sore throats, and every single one of them could be a potential COVID patient. So protect yourself. Think about all your cleanliness, your hygiene. You know, and if you're not comfortable with the situation, speak to your supervisor and say, like, I don't feel comfortable doing this at the moment. Gain your confidence first. One of the big fears I had was I had to isolate for 2 weeks during my pre-reg, and there's a cap on how many days you're allowed off during the year. The GPHC have been quite lenient on that and said that if you're off with COVID-related illness because you've had to isolate, then your employer doesn't have to count them towards your days. Some employers still will, so don't think it's a free ride. You can just phone up and say, I've got COVID and take 2 weeks off. You know, the more time you're in work, the better for your foundation year. But don't stress about having to isolate and what that impact will do on, because it's a very straightforward number. I think it's like 42 days you're allowed off throughout the year. And obviously with annual leave and COVID, that goes over that quite quickly. So don't stress about that. Speak to your employers as well. Some employers will let you work from home if you're in hospital. They'll give you jobs to do. Community pharmacy probably won't, but they won't count them days as sickness either, or your absence days. And again, if you have any issues with that, you can contact the GPHC, drop them an email, explain the situation, and they can write to your supervisor and cover like their procedures in place at the moment because of COVID. But yeah, the fact it was COVID for my year didn't really have a big impact like it did the year before, other than the exam being delayed. You know, my working life was pretty similar, just wearing a mask all the time.
Brilliant, thank you. So we're just going to take one more question. Apologies if we haven't answered any of your questions directly. I'm just sort of skipping questions that I feel like have been indirectly answered for other people's questions. So it's just one in the chat about is hospital fast-paced environment. So I'm just going to say a little bit about it. Obviously, I've only been in the hospital for a few weeks, but in my experience within my trust, there's some bigger hospitals and some smaller hospitals, and I think it definitely depends on what hospital you're in. The bigger hospitals tend to be a bit more fast-paced than the smaller hospitals, and also it can depend on the ward as well. If you're in sort of, you know, an A&E ward, it can be a lot more fast-paced than maybe a ward that's got mainly elective surgeries. And then in terms of dispensaries as well, it can depend on how big your hospital is. But I think, you know, if you're applying through Oriel, perhaps try and talk to somebody that's at that hospital or contact the hospital, and they can maybe give you some advice. But I don't know if Seb, you want to add on to that.
Yeah, just remember that at the end of the day, you are the pre-reg. So a lot of the responsibility is not on your head. Like, do your best to help the pharmacist, but in terms of like making like the clinical decisions and wanting to like do more, it's not your role to do that yet. So just enjoy the training, enjoy the experience. What I will say is that London hospitals are a lot more busy than other outside the hospitals. So if you're in or doing Oriel and you're thinking about applying to a London hospital, just remember that it's going to be a little bit busier than other hospitals.
Can I just say as well, one of the things that I noticed, a lot of people were dragged in to be vaccinators during their pre-reg year. That's a choice that you can make, and for some people, absolutely, it's the right thing to do. But don't feel that you have to do things to sort of make yourself look better or to get yourself further ahead, because if you're vaccinating, you're not gaining that much knowledge or experience for your exam. It's a good skill to have, and we all become vaccinators in the end. And I encourage everyone to do it at some point, but just don't be overwhelmed and overworked by being a vaccinator, because that isn't getting you the clinical knowledge that your pre-reg year is designed to do for you. So just be very careful about what additional things you want to take on during your year. and feel like if they're getting too much pressure, reach out for support and explain why you feel like it's not the right thing for you.
Brilliant, thank you guys. So we're going to end the questions there, but obviously if you guys do have any questions, more questions, I'm sure any of these guys wouldn't mind you reaching out to them, or you will have my email from sending out the link. So if you ever want to send me any questions to pass on, feel free to send me an email. So now I'm going to play about a short 10-minute video from Pharmacist Support, which was specifically made for Foundation trainees. So it's just a little video to say what Pharmacist Support do and the support that they can give you. Obviously, you know, it may not be useful directly for you, but it's also good to know where you can signpost any of your fellow colleagues or trainees, or anything like that. So I'm just going to share my screen 1 second. Okay, hopefully I've shared the sound as well with this. I'm just going to press play. Please let me know if you can't hear it.
Hi everyone, I'm Danielle Hunt. I'm the Chief Executive of the Professions Independent Charity, Pharmacist Support, and I'm joining you today just to tell you a little bit more about the charity and some of the support we provide. We've actually been around a really long time, so we were established by the Royal Pharmaceutical Society of Great Britain back in 1841. So we spent 180 years supporting members of our pharmacy family through difficult times. We actually became an independent charity back in 2006, and since then we've developed a range of new services during that time. We support individuals across the profession, and we support MPharm students, trainees just like you, pharmacists and former pharmacists across Great Britain. We really are that safety net for those people and understand that at any time people can face challenging or uncertain times and might just need a little bit of advice, guidance, or merely a supportive listening ear. At the end of 2019, ahead of the development of our new 5-year strategy, the charity undertook some market research, and this was because we really wanted to understand the current issues affecting the profession today to allow us to make sure that any development and our focus was relevant and useful. And what came across really strongly from this research, from students, trainees and pharmacists alike, was a need for support with work-life balance, managing stress, and managing well-being. You can see from the slide here, a really important figure for us, because it was really quite concerning, was that 71% of respondents told us poor mental health is a core issue affecting the profession today. And actually this was ever so slightly higher amongst students and trainees. So for us, this was something that we really wanted to focus on and wanted to look at where we could help to support wellbeing and to support some of the issues identified in the survey. Surveys and research like this, which we continue to do, really help us better understand the sector and your needs, and allows us to develop our support and services to what you tell us is relevant to you. If you're a regular supporter of a charity, you'll know that very recently, due to feedback we've received from the sector, particularly through the pandemic, the needs around mental health and support required and some of the barriers to access other support, we're really excited about the launch of our new counselling and peer support service. So for the first time, we can now provide counselling, and counselling is for those who wish to have emotional and psychological support from a qualified counsellor. It's really easy to access, so you can access by just simply visiting our website and completing a form. You'll be able to access this free confidential support without the barrier then of a long waiting list. And we did launch our new strategy in January 2020 ahead of the pandemic, and we didn't know what was coming, like many of us didn't. However, our strategy has really guided us through this time. We did have a real focus on well-being, and our new vision is that no one in our pharmacy family will face challenging times without us by their side. And our mission is to champion the well-being of our pharmacy family. And I thought it was important to just touch on our values, because as a charity, our values are very important to us and they really guide the way that we work. We want to empower you, our pharmacy family, to prioritise your well-being and not only feel like you should reach out to us when you're at crisis point, but at any point in your journey. We're here to positively embed well-being practice in day-to-day life. And that's really important, because what we want is, we don't want people to get to that crisis point, but we are that safety net if you do need that support. But if we can encourage people to think about well-being day-to-day, that's important to us. If you were to contact us for support, you can expect to be treated in a compassionate and empathetic way. It's important to touch upon our fairness value too. Because we're independent, you can expect to be treated fairly, without judgment, and with complete confidentiality. So do reach out to us if you feel you do need support from the charity. So I've mentioned the services. We offer a range of free and confidential support services. I'm sharing these on the screen right now. So we do have an information inquiries service. We have lots of information on our website, lots of useful fact sheets and signposting to different organisations. You can also contact our inquiry service via email and by phone. We have a specialist advice service in the area of debt, benefit and employment law. We have an addiction support service. This covers a range of dependencies, including alcohol, drugs, but also other issues such as eating disorders and gambling. We provide financial assistance. So this may be to help with a one-off specific cost or to support ongoing costs. And they're really to support people's mental and physical quality of life. We are able to help with the costs associated with people returning to the register. So this is really important to us, because we understand that sometimes people face difficult times and maybe step away from the profession, and we can help people step back into it and particularly help with some of those costs. I previously mentioned our new counselling offer. This is part of our counselling and peer support service. The counselling service is for anyone in our pharmacy family who feel they need it. We're particularly mindful of the challenges people have faced during the pandemic, and encourage people who feel they need the support to reach out. Through this service, you can access free counselling sessions in a timely manner. The other side of this service is our List and Friends. This is a well-established peer support service, so you can speak to a fellow pharmacist about work-related issues. When I say it's well-established, it's actually been around for 25 years, and it's staffed by trained volunteer pharmacists and former pharmacists, so they really do understand some of the pressures faced by working in the profession. In addition, we do have our Wardley Wellbeing Service. This consists of a range of proactive online resources and workshops to help you prioritise your wellbeing. And I think it's always important to share what other people think about the charity and our service. So I'm just sharing a quote from a trainee pharmacist who approached us for help. Our support is tailored to an individual's needs, and our information team will try and build a picture of the situation and identify any support required. To give you an example, where a trainee is experiencing problems on their placement, we can provide them with a listening friend and with guidance from our specialist employment advisor. Where a trainee is struggling with pressures in the lead up to a registration assessment, if they've failed the assessment, are in between resits or are waiting to become registered, we can provide financial assistance where necessary to cover any priority living expenses. We can offer assistance with revision courses and GPHC registration fees. We can also offer emotional support and encouragement via our Listening Friends service. And of course, we have that benefit and debt advice service if it's required. And we know that those working in the pharmacy profession often put others before themselves. So here at Pharmacy Support, we want to be here for you. In 2020, the charity launched its first ever major wellbeing campaign, Act Now. Act Now focuses very much on raising awareness of the issues impacting pharmacist wellbeing and on developing tools to help those across our pharmacy family to prioritise their wellbeing. Through the campaign, we encourage pharmacy students, trainees and pharmacists alike to allow time for wellbeing, to consider the needs of colleagues and others, and to take action. And one of the goals of our campaign is to open conversation, particularly around mental health and wellbeing. And we aim to do this through encouraging people to share stories, any learnings and tips they use to support their own wellbeing. The feedback we received on the first campaign was incredibly positive, and there was one particular piece of feedback which was that the campaign helped that person feel less alone. And that was really important to us, as we know isolation can be a key issue for our pharmacy family. Because we got such a great reaction to the campaign, we are going to now run this as an annual campaign, and it will be comprised of a student-focused campaign in April, a trainee-focused campaign in June, and a pharmacist and pharmacy team-focused campaign in the autumn. By signing up to the campaign, you'll receive free, dedicated and exclusive resources to help you and your teams to prioritise and look after your wellbeing. And central to the Act Now campaign is our Wardley Wellbeing Hub, which forms part of our crucial wellbeing service. On the hub, you'll find a range of wellbeing resources on topics such as helping you get mentally prepared for assessments, how to cope with anxiety around not knowing if you passed or failed the assessment, and the right way to dealing with kind of the stress and wellbeing needs when you become qualified as a pharmacist. So it can support with kind of working practice, but also your home life, just so making sure you've got that work-life balance and building in good wellbeing focused activity into your everyday routines. All these resources and many more can be found on our website, and I'm just sharing the link to our hub there. As I've mentioned, we are a charity, so as an independent charity, we rely heavily on donations and the generosity of individuals and organisations to support our work. So Team Green is where we encourage people to get involved in our activity. So Team Green is our year-long fundraising activity. In essence, if you choose to fundraise for a charity, you'll be joining Team Green. We, like many charities across the world, do need to find new ways to deliver our support and to raise funds. Additionally, we are finding new ways to engage donors. It's been very difficult, particularly through the pandemic, because we've not been able to run our usual face-to-face activity. There hasn't been the large-scale events or gatherings. So we have needed individual support more than ever. If you are in a position to do so, we do encourage people to donate, or you can fundraise for us. People fundraise for us in a range of different ways. People set themselves challenges, running, hiking, cycling, walking, or they do other things. So it's quite a nice wellbeing activity too. So some people gather colleagues together to host events such as a bake sale. And that's a really nice way to raise funds for the charity, but also do some wellbeing focused activity. There's loads of great ideas. There's bake sales, quizzes, lots of things you could do as a team. If you are feeling a little bit inspired by that, you can visit our website, because we do have resources on there that give inspiration about other ways you can fundraise for us. There's also other ways to support our work as well. It's not just all about funds, it's about time. So you could give your time as a volunteer, or you could share your own story, writing or providing a video diary of your own wellbeing experiences and learning. And as I mentioned in my campaign, this has been really, really valuable. If you have used our service, you might just simply talk about that service and how it affected you, because I think people hearing from other people who's used the service how important and valuable it's been is really powerful. It can be completely confidential. So if you are interested, you can contact us at marketing@pharmacistsupport.org, and we're really happy to chat through what it might mean to provide a story or a video diary. So as explained, you can find lots of information on our website. You can also find lots of information on our social media channels, so Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Should you need to speak to someone about any issue, you can contact us Monday to Friday. Our phone line is open 9 till 5, and you can also email us. I'm showing all the details there. I would really encourage you to sign up to our e-newsletter. If you sign up to our e-newsletter, you'll receive regular communications, so you'll be able to find out about any latest service developments and activity. We provide useful wellbeing tips and resources. You just remain up to date on what's going on. To end on a positive note, as I've mentioned previously, we are a small independent charity with big ambitions, and we do rely heavily on the generosity of donations. So if you are in a position to do so, you can do this really easily. Text using the details on screen, and this will donate £5 to a charity. If you're not in a position to do so, but want to share that maybe through your social media channels, you can also do that as well. Definitely sign up to the newsletter, follow us on the social media channels if you have them. I'd just really like to thank you all for listening. All the best in your training and reassessment and your future career. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you guys for sitting through that video. And I hope
what does a pharmacist do?
Sorry about that. It started playing the next YouTube video. Yeah, so I hope that you managed to learn something about pharmacist support to either support yourself or your colleagues or any friends. And obviously, if you want to get involved with some pharmacist support at all, I'd highly recommend it because they are a brilliant charity and they're the official charity of the BPSA as well. So definitely go onto their website and have a read of what they do and the things you can get involved in. So I think that's everything for today. I hope you found this webinar useful, and if you haven't already, make sure you head to the website and sign up to graduate membership, and also keep an eye on the social media over the next few days for the graduate subcommittee applications. There's also a few other subcommittees that you can get involved in. There's going to be an annual conference subcommittee which Wendy is going to be involved with. There's also going to be a competition subcommittee, some subcommittees for our IPSF and EPSA roles on the executive, and also a competitions subcommittee as well. I think that's everything. Apologies if I've missed anything. But yeah, head onto the website. If you go to the drop-down menu, you can click on subcommittees and you can see all of the information about those there. And I'd highly recommend applying so that you can get involved. In terms of graduate events, hopefully we will be running more events throughout the year. They will include revision sessions. Obviously, a lot of questions today were about applying for jobs. So hopefully we'll do an event about applying for jobs and job interviews and things like that. So definitely keep an eye on your emails and your social media for all of these events. I'm just going to share something quickly on my screen with you. I'm not going to maximize it because I can't get to the thing. I'm not very good at technology, but these are just some people that you can go to for support, things you can sign up for if perhaps your designated supervisor or your training provider is not being particularly helpful. Probably if it's about your training year, the GPHC would be the first port of call, or the BPSA, us, the RPS, would be more than happy to help out if you have any concerns or any problems. Also keep an eye in your emails because we'll be sending a feedback form out about this event over the next few days. So it'll be really good to hear your feedback about this webinar, and if there's any webinars you think we should do in the future, and anything you think we can improve on. But yeah, thank you all for coming, and I really hope that you learned something.
Good luck, everybody.
Oh, and good luck to all of you three for your results tomorrow as well.